Hey everybody, this is Target of Carl. Uh, I'm doing another discussion video. I've been wanting to do this for at least a couple of days now, but I had other stuff to tackle, more pertinent stuff. But now I have the time, and all things said and done, now I can actually give my overall thoughts. Now, of course, if you haven't been catching up on current events when it comes to Johnathan Majors and what's going on with Marvel and Disney, several months ago, Johnathan Majors got into it on the claims of physical abuse towards his then girlfriend. I forgot her doggone name. Who he met on the set of Ant-Man 3 apparently. And she, was found in his apartment in New York City with a cut behind her ear and bruised finger. And it was Johnathan Majors who called the paramedics to come take a look at her, which you can see on at least a couple of videos by TMZ. And she was brought in, and then things started spiraling since then. Nobody knew what really went on because things had to play out, and police had to do their investigations, and lawyers had to do their thing. So everything is on hush hush on the surface. We're getting like little bits, pieces here and there. We didn't get the full spectrum until like almost like a week or so later. I mean, not a week or so ago from now. And people were like, okay, did he really do it? Nobody wants, rational people wanted to wait till court and the legal system play it all out. I've been on the camp of Johnathan Majors' side because I just don't want to, well, first and foremost, I didn't want to say like, oh, I'm playing, immediately jumping on one side or the other. But as things went on and what little bits and pieces starts, coming into the public eye, little by little, I'm thinking like, Johnathan Majors might have a case here. And it wasn't until that we actually got video of this man running on New York, late on New York City, where he was seen, I guess because the Uber driver, he was, really waiting on, I don't know why it took so freaking long for we get like the Uber driver and his statement. But of course he had to keep his eyes on the road. But from his, when times he did notice what was carrying on, he made a statement about how she was the aggressor because she was taking his phone. And I heard from many lawyers in New York City law, if somebody tried to take your property, which was his phone in this case, you have, you are well within your right to take back your property by, any means you can, because that will quantify as theft. Don't know why. Maybe they played that out. I'm not sure. It didn't seem like they put that into play, given the fact that she tried to take his phone. But according to the driver, she seemed like she was the aggressor. So Johnathan Majors tried to exit the car. We see this on the video. She tried to come after him because I guess she still liked, still really liked the guy because she didn't even want to press charges. But given the fact that it's New York and how they feel about domestic violence, they don't want really sketchy people getting away with crap, all because girls, primarily is women, who refused to press charges and end up getting, beaten it again. And you don't want to have to go through that. So you see her, try to exit the vehicle after him, but he, I guess didn't want, like, whatever argument they was having, he just refused to deal with it. So he put her back in. He carried her back into the vehicle. So he knows full well that she'll be, because she don't want to, like, it's late at night. It's not extraordinary late, but it's still, let's say it's like 10 p.m. or something like that. There's still people out and about. He did not want her just roaming around at night in the middle of New York City. So he's like, okay, I'll put you back in the vehicle. I don't want to deal with you right now, but I don't want you sitting and roaming around. So like, I put her back in the car. But it didn't matter to her. She just exit vehicle and started going after him, trying to, like, get you, didn't. She still wanted him. She wanted to be with him and stuff like that. She was still feeling the dude, but he did not want nothing to do with it. Whatever the argument they had, it was like enough where he just needed his space, basically. But she started chasing after him, and like, this dude was very fit. He was like Forrest Gump, running down blocks, at least 3 or 4 blocks. We see it on several street cameras. You can look it up. This dude was gunning it, and kudos to her. She was keeping pace. She wasn't like, as fast as him, but the fact that she kept a pace for at least for a little while was like, it did give me a chuckle a little bit. I was like, wow, they both were like very like fit people, so they can like run for a good while. But then she eventually gave up. But then she, I guess, was hysterical, and she met up with a couple of strangers, and they seemed like they're concerned because she seemed like she's in distress. Here comes Johnathan Majors, happened upon coming down the street. God, it's a freaking small city, I guess. Well, small world. He just happened to come across the same street as she's like, she sees him, and she's trying to, get him to come back to her or something like that, and then he ain't had nothing to do with it. He just kept on walking. So, you see like another video later where she's seen in the bar grabbing more drinks, because according to, like, this whole injury on her finger, thinking it's him, but it's, clearly her finger was fine because she was like grabbing drinks and seemed to no signs of any pain or injury. So it had to be after this situation, well beyond the time that she was away from this guy. Then you get the whole 911 call. She was found, kind of laid out in his, walk-in closet of the apartment. He called 911. They, looked over her and everything like that. And long story short, he still found guilty, but mostly of misdemeanor stuff. At most, he would face like a year in jail, but we're probably not even going to get that. But it's the fact that he doesn't really. I am hesitant on using the word guilty, because he's not being guilty. He's not guilty on the crimes he was accused of early on. What the jury found was like, well, it's the way he was putting her back in the car where they want to count that as the aggressive part. And I find that, just beyond, honestly. It's like, you had like all this time, you looking at that video, and usually the court of public opinion is like, that really turned against him very fast. Especially when it comes to celebrity, court of public opinion just goes all, it's a circus, and it doesn't mean even if like things went well, It's just that stain on him is, that's usually all she wrote. But most people who look at this video find it's kind of like effed up, where it's just like this man was literally running away from this woman and she would not leave him alone. If what abuser calls 911 on the supposed victim? What victim, after a supposed altercation, gets starts chasing after the guy who supposedly was assaulting her, even though she doesn't claim assault by this guy, even though that's what like the DA's office was like heavily leaning into. And it's just like, what is it? It kind of reminds me of a lot of situations with like with James Gunn, where it's like, you remember a while ago where somebody brought up some very old crass joke that James Gunn made well over a decade ago, early 2000s, where shock jock type of comedy was all the rage, and he made some I forgot, I think it was some child related joke that wasn't really very funny, but they used that very quickly to like put a stain on James Gunn's reputation. And if it wasn't for Dave Bautista and many other actors who know this guy very well, that this guy ain't a creep as whoever brought that old stuff up to try to make him out to be. But this whole Disney situation comes into play, where they quickly like put the kibosh on this guy, just like they right as the verdict was laid down with Johnathan Majors. It's like they just like press the button like, oh, he's fired. And people like speculate like, oh, that's because like the whole Kang dynasty and what's going on with phase 5 isn't up to par like MCU used to be. So they need they just want an excuse to pivot, and this is good enough a way to do it, which I thought that was kind of crummy. Yeah, there's been a few things here and there in phase 4 and 5 that wasn't up to snuff, but by and large, it's they at most, I would say, they wasn't very focused on what the end goal is, because we know Kang was supposed to be the big bad, but they didn't do a very good job with interweaving everything fluently, where like the general audience can get on board. All that in combination with the multiverse saga, which I think is very good, but it didn't help that every other studio is also doing multiversal stuff, so it's getting kind of diluted. So that's where people are getting like kind of sick of it at this point. And then there's those camp people that's like getting superhero fatigue, which I think is somewhat capped, because you wasn't crying superhero fatigue when you got like the Spider-Verse films or Guardians of the Galaxy 3, things like that, where it worked out well and he wasn't poo-pooing it. So it's just, and then you got like the whole situation with Bob Iger with his statement he made a couple of weeks ago at like a conference, where it's like he pointed out the fact that for a few years now Marvel and Disney were pretty much like, I don't know if it was the writers, there was some situation, I might be paraphrasing, but some kind of situation with a leaked thing about one writer who wanted to insert their agenda, like a very leftist agenda into the writing. I mean, you can pretty much look it up. I know, like, I can't give like exact details, but it's been a while when I heard that. I was like, that blew my mind. But I'm pretty sure you can look that up so you can get like the full details of that situation. But Bob Iger basically made a point where it's like they've been primarily focusing on messaging over the storytelling, where it's like, yeah, some people have been noticing a trend lately. It's not just with, Marvel, it's just with like the Disney animation side, Star Wars side. It is just like overall, it's just been like, okay, I notice a pattern here where it seems like, okay, it's great to have a message in your movie, but it's just like, I don't know. It's like you look at someone like She-Hulk. There's certain things in She-Hulk that I'm thinking like, I like the character of She-Hulk, but you using it as a vehicle to, to like, like, what you can use it to drive like, certain women struggles and stuff like that, but it's, a little bit heavy-handed in some cases. And the fact that it's supposed to be a lawyer show and you kind of like, they barely even put that on the back burner. It was way burnt because like you barely got any true. They touted when like the announcement of She-Hulk was first brought up. They touted it like, oh, this is gonna be a true lawyer show. Even get like actual court stuff that you barely got even in Daredevil, and Daredevil was like stunning. And sure, I mean, some of the courtroom stuff in Daredevil, and you see certain lawyers like legal ego pointing out where it's like, yeah, it's kind of like some stuff is like a little wibbly wobbly here and there when it comes to their courtroom drama. And it's like, you guys are writers, you got all these different, you can get like a lawyer consultant on your staff to like set up some stuff so that way when we see like a courtroom drama depicted, it can be relatively close to make it fairly accurate. But it's just like they prioritize other things over the storytelling, and that became like a detriment to like a lot of the writings going on. But anyway, I'm going so far in the other direction right now, but I'm just saying that Disney has been dropping the ball, and they trying to essentially prune a lot of things that they isn't working for them. But it's just sometimes they jump the James Gunn of it all, because they quickly like try to get rid of James Gunn after like a bad joke that he made 10 years ago that was uncouth at most. And now they kind of regret it because Warner Brothers scooped him up very fast, and now he's running DC film and TV right now over their side of things. He's part of the competitor at this point. And what's going on with Johnathan Majors, they did the exact same thing, because Kang wasn't a bad idea. The multiverse isn't a bad idea. It's a logical next step in terms of the next saga after the Infinity Saga. What will be like a logical next step? Now people talking about, I mean, at best they should recast if you wanted to go that way. I don't agree. I think they can still work with Johnathan Majors because what he's accused of isn't what he's accused of. You're leaning too into the way the taglines in certain headlines making it seem like, oh, he's guilty of abuse, and can't have no abusers on our team because it's a family type of thing, which is crap. Your stuff ain't working well, and you think, oh, Kang was the problem. Like, no, your writing was part of the issue more so than anything. This guy is an incredible actor. Maybe we'll see him in many stuff with like Lovecraft Country and Loki, and say what you will about Ant-Man 3, he wasn't the problem. He was really good in that, along with Paul Rudd. It's just like, and he had other stuff that went down the toilet after these accusations. He was on these like military commercial campaigns or something like that got dropped really fast over these accusations. And this dude had like, the world was his oyster. He was on like really on the rise. He was rising. It got Creed 3 and everything like that. He was already rising, but he was on the rise, and all that just you just gave up on this guy so fast. And it's like how many, you expect every actor to be squeaky clean, and that's virtually impossible. And if you pivot to Doctor Doom, which I don't think I mean, Doctor Doom was a fine character, but it's just like, I don't know, I argue he's not that big enough. He gets beat by a team of 4 people all the time in the comics. Sure, he has his big events here and there, but primarily you need somebody bigger, and Kang seems like logical, especially if you're doing multiverse thing. It's logical to have him, but they quickly like, okay, we gotta like get back from this. But you got like Robert Downey Jr., who had like substance abuse, heavy substance abuse, and all this other crazy stuff before you brought him on to be Iron Man, and he's like a household name. And it's like, nobody's perfect. James Gunn made one bad joke 10 years ago, 10 or so years ago, and you quickly like, oh, we gotta get rid of him. We can't have any kind of problems with our actors or directors or anything like that. But it's virtually impossible. Even if you get like a Doctor Doom or recast Kang, some people say like, oh, you should get John Boyega to be Kang, which is kind of cool. But it's just like, what if somebody else, like whoever is chosen to be Doctor Doom, what if he gets, accused of something? And it's like, then you be in the same boat again. You got to like observe the situation. Okay, is it on the level of like Harvey Weinstein, or can we kind of just ride this out? Because everybody will eventually forget this. Of course, Johnathan Majors will bounce back from this, but now he has to do somersaults with indie stuff before people can like, like, okay, we can like work with him. We're comfortable right now. I'm just like, that is just, it's infuriating because he's in a situation where it's like no win. Like, did you want him to actually abuse somebody just so you can, actually say, oh, he did do it? But no, he didn't. He ran away. He called the paramedics to, make sure this girl was okay. And that's another thing where people are hung up, probably because they let in. People like are just like crazy with like videotaping when certain couples are just knee deep in video or audio taping private conversations that the world doesn't really need to know their business on, can easily be taken out of context. Because I'm going to compare this to a whole Jonah Hill situation in just a second, but you had leaked audio tapes of him arguing with this girl about, it's like, I need you to be like Coretta Scott King and Michelle Obama, because I'm a great man, I'm doing great things. And it's like, people are like, certain people are taking it way too like far into like a racial component, where it's like, oh, he expects like a white girl to be these prominent black women. And it's like, no. And you can make the argument, maybe, that's kind of arrogant because you make yourself seem like you're MLK or Barack Obama or something like that. You can make that argument, sure, but he's an actor. Most actors have some level of arrogance and self-righteousness as part for the course, especially people who get those kind of, who's laying that out are from LA, so you should definitely be used to that. But the way I'm reading it, where we all should be reading it, is that he is, lack for a better term, he's a prominent black male who has clawed, scraped, bled, teared his way, because being an actor, it's a struggle to climb to reach a point where you're recognized. And he's been doing like plays and all this little stuff, and like probably working primarily on the side just to make ends meet, so that way he can put in auditions and everything. He worked his ass off to get to the point where he's in these recognized in like Lovecraft Country, and then he's getting all these deals and networking and going to these like events, meeting all these movers and shakers and everything like that. So he made something of himself. He struggled to get to the top. So when he's asking this girl, okay, basically like, laying out a boundary of his, because he's reached to a certain point in his career where he's like, okay, I met you earlier this year, I'm feeling you. Kind of like, I'm trying to put words in my mouth, but basically it's how I'm reading it. It's like, look, I built myself up to where people look up to me, essentially. I can't have you as my girl. If we want to pursue this, I can't have you going out, drinking late hours of the night, blase, and because that will reflect poorly on us, not just him, but us as a couple in our relationship, and I put things, put strain on that relationship. I can't have that. Lord, God forbid if he didn't have this conversation or whatever, and she's out drinking and TMZ got word this lady, Johnathan Majors' girlfriend, out partying, in Soho, and she's, tipsy and puking on the sidewalk and passed out, and it's like, that would just look bad. And so he's like, okay, I can't have that detriment. So you gotta chill with like going out drinking and all this other stuff. People reading that as controlling, and it's like, sure, and Mike, it's probably not the first time he had this conversation, so he has like a tinge of anger, because it's like, yeah, I'm upset because once again I have to repeat myself. Because I already told you I didn't like that. She sitting and recording this private conversation. Now people are, picking it apart, thinking like, oh, he's manipulating her. No, he's laying like a ground rule that is supposed to be the benefit of the relationship. Same with Jonah Hill. He did it with the part in the most polite way possible with the text messages. Pretty much with that surfer chick, it's like, hey, like, if we want to pursue this seriously, I can't have you like posting bikini ass shots, even if you claim it's like, oh, for like, promoting your surfing thing or whatever. It's like, okay, you probably need to cool it and cool it with hanging out with certain people if we're going to be commit to this. 'Cause I want to commit to you, but like, this is my boundary. But people like to twist it like, oh, he's just verbally manipulating her using like therapist speak, and it's like, what can you do? A man can have a simple boundary, like, because some girls can act wild. It's true. Even girls can admit that you have wild girlfriends. So they exist. So when you're in a relationship, there are things that, a man or woman have to cool it on, because you're not just by yourself. You're a unit now. And certain things that your partner won't like that you have to cool it on. And you have to respect that. But it only seems like girls can lay out whatever boundary they want to, no matter how ridiculous or less ridiculous it is. And guys just don't have no say. And you just, they can run rampant, but you guys got to deal with it. That's not fair. And it's like, and now people are just labeling him narcissistic, manipulative, all this stuff, and this is just gone off the freaking rails. And Disney, they definitely wrong. It's like, why are you doing this whole James Gunn situation all over again? You acted too irrationally on the situation, and it's just like, you could have just kept the man. You could just let him keep his doggone job at the very least. He's not, like this horrible male chauvinist abuser that the DA trying to paint him as. And you just like, okay, well, just get rid of him. Oh, easy, quick fix. No, like, just a quick fix would just like, just get your writers to write better. And also the fact that you got, people, especially at the whole situation between like She-Hulk up until Wakanda Forever, we all got hip to the idea that, especially after the writer's strike, we all like knew what's going on behind the scenes, where you got people behind the scenes spread so thin. That's why you got crappy CGI in Ant-Man 3, because you got your, you know, people spread so thin where a lot of stuff feels so half-assed, and you dare, you know, label it as like, oh, it gotta be the whole Kang situation. No, you got your writings half-assed, and you got your people spread so thin where it's like they need, like, you know, focus. You know, tell things one at a time, give them like a decent amount of break before they go, you know, over to the next thing. And then the whole budget situation, like, as much as I actually like the Marvels, I don't care what anybody say, I actually did like the Marvels. The villains sucked, but the 3 actresses were great. But even then, your budget of $200 million wasn't really worth it. You probably at least needed maybe half that. The budget was, you know, kind of useless. I mean, not useless, but it wasn't needed. So you got to pay attention with your budget. You got to, you know, have your writers focus and, you know, try to, like, you know, it's okay to put in like a message, but don't like go heavy handed with it. And like keep like the people working on CGI and editing and everything like that. You gotta like not have them spread thin, and so they can like focus on one thing at a time, give it a break before they move on to the next thing. Because you're Disney, you have the time and the budget to, like, you know, now they kind of realize, okay, we gotta ease up. So that's why next year we only got like Deadpool 3 and I think Agatha Harkness, Echo is only 2 things I think that coming out Marvel related. And so you know, they like, you know, taking a break and like focus and like limited their stuff from like 1 or 2 things per year, so that way we can give like a breather, which is something that you should have been kind of like, you know, got hip to, at least around She-Hulk area time wise. Because you pretty much called yourself out at the end of She-Hulk about, you know, oh, we gotta move on to Wakanda Forever. You know, it's like, okay, you making a joke out of it, but you're not really gonna do anything about it. So you know that we know. So we know that you know, you don't do anything to fix it. That is kind of effed up. And then don't get me started on the whole Secret Invasion. That was pitiful. That was pitiful. That's, people talk crap about the Marvels. The Secret Invasion was the worst of the worst. That was the worst of the worst. And this comes from a guy who hates Thor Dark World. But yeah, I think this whole Johnathan Majors is like, I don't think he deserved to be fired from Disney. I'm curious to know what you guys' thoughts on the whole situation, but that is just ridiculous. And what I hope is, since they want to, you know, fly off the handle so quickly and just get rid of him just completely, even though we all know he's a great actor, you're so desperate to, you know, cut loose the whole Kang situation, where he's great. You know, it's actually a really great character. It's a good idea. You just have shoddy writing about it. I hope James Gunn scoop him up and bring him in some kind of Warner Bros. Property and something in a very prominent role, just to, you know, like not F you or anything like that to Disney, but kind of shows like, oh, you made a huge mistake twice already. Once with James Gunn and now with Johnathan Majors, because y'all like flew off the handle too, you know, quickly with that, instead of just reassessing and try to work with this guy, because he's not going to face any jail time. Let's be real here. He's probably going to get community service at most. It irked me so badly with this situation. And people taking that whole, stop recording your private conversations, especially if you're prominent, both or one of you are prominent celebrities, is going to be easily picked to shreds by the community. That isn't our business. What couple doesn't have an argument that can easily be taken out of context? Oh my God, it was just like maddening. But those are my thoughts on the whole Johnathan Majors situation. I think it's irrational to cut him loose from Disney. As great as he is, and he's not this horrible person. At most, you can say he's a bit arrogant, if you can, have any type of argument. And like him, like, can you imagine him trying to, the way he put her in the car? How else can he put her in the car if he doesn't want to deal with her? You want her running in traffic? Do you want her like, run around dead of night of New York City and stuff like that? It's like the way he did it. Get off that. The way he did it, especially if she's struggling or anything like that, while he's trying to carry her back in a car so she can, be in a safe space. It's like, of course, there's gonna be a struggle. You can call, any parent holding a toddler, and that toddler is struggling because it's crying and hysterical. You can easily put that, like, is that abuse or something like that? No, they're just being fussy. And you can argue the girl was being fussy because, like, he didn't want to deal with this argument and just want to just be by himself for a minute to, like, probably cool off. But no, God forbid, you can't win for nothing. He handled it as appropriately as he possibly could, given the circumstances. But some people don't want to see it that way. That's just like, it's maddening. But leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on the whole situation. I just want to get this off my chest because I thought this is just like it irked me badly, man. I feel so bad for this actor because he didn't deserve this. No actor, who isn't like a Harvey Weinstein kind of situation or like a true blue beater, like, actually like, like abusive. Unless they're exactly like that and proven like that, you can, actually work around, get over this hump. It's like, the same way I felt the same way after they just, went after James Gunn the way they did. That really set me off too. I was, oh my God. Anyway, I'll see you guys in a little bit. I'll be doing like, speaking of James Gunn, I'll be doing a spoiler review of Aquaman 2. So look forward to that, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Peace.